ATP into ADP and inorganic phosphate. Okay, hydrolysis of ATP into ADP into inorganic phosphate. Okay, next coming to the point. At rest, an ATP molecule is attached to a globular myosin head on the thick filament as the ATP is hydrolyzed. At rest, an ATP molecule is attached. ATP molecule అనేది attach అయి ఉంటుంది to a globular myosin head. Globular myosin head కి attach అయి ఉంటుంది. Okay, I will show you in the diagram. This is the globular this is the part where ATP has been attached. Okay, the myosin head changes conformation and forms an attachment known as cross bridge. The myosin changes and changes the myosin head అనేది దాని యొక్క కన్ఫర్మేషన్ చేంజ్ చేసుకుంటుంది. For what purpose means for the formation and attachment of known as cross bridge. This is the cross bridge and with the thin filament. Okay, it is with thin filament, nothing but actin filament, actin myofilament. Then when the ADP and phosphate molecules are released, the myosin head again changes conformation. ADP and phosphate molecules రిలీజ్ అయినప్పుడు ఆ మయోసిన్ యొక్క హెడ్ అనేది మళ్ళీ చేంజ్ అవుతుంది అనమాట. ఓకే, దెన్ నెక్స్ట్ కమింగ్ టు ద పాయింట్, ద హెడ్ రిటర్న్స్ టు ఇట్స్ ఇనిషియల్ కన్ఫర్మేషన్ అండ్ రిలీజెస్ ద థిన్ ఫిల్మెంట్ ఇన్ ఇట్స్ న్యూ పొజిషన్ నియర్ ద సెంట్రల్ ఎమ్ లైన్. దాని యొక్క ఒరిజినల్ కొత్త పొజిషన్ లోకి వస్తుంది. అది ఎక్కడ అంటే center of the M line ki. Okay, and the cycle then repeats itself. A cycle అనేది మళ్ళీ అలా రిపీట్ అవుతూ ఉంటుంది. Okay, the new ATP molecule is hydrolyzed into ADP and inorganic phosphate. Again the cycle gets started. No? Then the new ADP molecule is hydrolyzed into ADP and inorganic phosphate. And the myosin head changes conformation. And finally the myosin head again changes the conformation, resulting in the thin filament being pushed towards the center of the sarcomere, resulting in the thin filament. Okay, thin filament and being pushed towards the center of the sarcomere, pushed towards the, say this is the edge and this is the center of the sarcomere. There is a push. Okay, and each thick filament contains several hundred myosin heads. Each thick filament contains several hundred myosin heads. Okay, that can form cross bridges with the thin filaments about 5 times per second. Okay, then finally that can form cross bridges with the thin filaments. Then it forms cross bridges with the thin filaments about 5 times per second. The continuous contractions of the myofibrils result in a muscle contraction. This continuous contraction process of myofibrils results in muscle contraction. Okay, next coming to the point, muscle contractions are powered by ATP as the muscle fiber itself only stores a very small amount of ATP. Okay, muscle contractions are powered by ATP because it hydrolyzes the ATP into ADP and inorganic phosphate. As the muscle fiber itself only stores a very small amount of ATP. The energy comes from two other compounds stored in the muscles. And not only ATP, the energy comes from other two compounds which are stored in muscles, that are creatinine and phosphate and glycogen. Okay, the ATP stored in the muscle fiber and the ATP that can be formed by creatine phosphate are used for short-term bursts of energy. Okay, ATP which is stored in muscle fiber and the ATP that can form by creatine phosphate are used for short-term bursts of energy. They can provide energy for up to about 15 seconds. Okay, glycogen can provide a long-term energy source as glycogen breaks down to glucose. Okay, which is then converted to ATP through glycolysis. Glycolysis means breakdown of glucose molecules. Okay, and aerobic respiration, that means oxygenation takes place. Okay, and next coming to the point, mechanism of muscle contraction. Okay, during the muscle contraction, the thin filaments slide over the thick filaments. Okay, when the muscle contraction takes place, then thin filaments slide over to thick filaments. Okay, and a signal sent by the central nervous system via motor neuron initiates muscle contraction. Okay, a signal sent by the nervous system. The signal that is sent by the nervous system via motor neurons initiates muscle contraction. Okay, the neuromuscular junction is the junction between a motor neuron and sarcolemma. Okay, neuromuscular junction అనేది ఏంటంటే it is the junction between a motor neuron and sarcolemma. Okay, acetylcholine is released when a neural signal reaches the junction and action potential is generated in the sarcolemma. Acetylcholine is released at the neuromuscular junction and binds to acetylcholine receptors in the sarcolemma. Okay. Mm, excuse me. When this spreads through the muscle fiber, calcium ion is released in the sarcoplasm. Whenever the process has, whenever the acetylcholine released, then then it spreads through the muscle fiber. Calcium ion is released in the sarcoplasm. Okay, see here, sarcoplasmic reticulum releases calcium ions. Okay, it is just already stored calcium ions. These are the calcium ions which are stored in the sarcoplasmic reticulum. Okay, next coming to the point, calcium then binds to troponin on actin filament. Okay, calcium then binds to troponin on actin filaments and exposes the active sites for myosin, which that exposes the active sites for myosin. See here, active site exposure and cross bridge formation. Calcium ions binds to troponin, exposing the active sites on the thin filaments. Cross bridges formed, then myosin heads bind to those active sites. Okay, myosin head bind to those active sites. Okay, and this is the next coming to the point. mm, Myosin binds to the exposed active site on actin using energy from the hydrolysis of ATP. Okay, then this pulls the actin towards the center. This pulls the actin towards the center, and the jet lines attached to these are also pulled and contraction occurs. Myosin is in a relaxed state. At that time, myosin is in a relaxed state. Okay. Next, coming to the point. Consequently, the hydrolysis of ATP at the myosin head continues, and this leads to the further sliding. A hydrolysis of ATP at the myosin head continues, and this leads to further sliding filaments ki చేస్తుంది. This is repeated till calcium ions are pumped back to the sarcolemma. ఈ ప్రాసెస్ అనేది రిపీట్ అవుతూనే ఉంటుంది up to when till the calcium ions are pumped back to the sarcolemma and results in the covering of the actin sites again. Okay, the jet lines move back to their original positions. This causes relaxation. Muscle fatigue occurs due to the repeated activation of muscles, leading to accumulation of lactic acid. Okay, leading to the accumulation of lactic acid. Okay, let us discuss about the remaining points. T-tubule. T-tubule also there. Action potential reaches the T-tubule. That means an action potential is generated and spreads across the membrane surface of the muscle fiber and along the T-tubules. Okay, an action potential is generated and spreads across the membrane surface of the muscle fiber and along the T-tubules. Okay, this is the overview of the muscle contraction mechanism. Okay, let us know about acetylcholine. Acetylcholine means what? Acetylcholine acts as a transmitter between motor nerves and the fibers of skeletal muscle at all neuromuscular junctions. Okay, it is a transmitter between motor nerves and the fibers of skeletal muscle at all neuromuscular junctions. At this type of synapse, the nerve terminal, see here, the nerve terminal um, is closely opposite to the cell membrane of a muscle fiber um, at the so-called motor end plate. Okay, This is called motor and plate here. And on release, acetylcholine acts almost instantly to cause a sequence of chemical and physical events, starting with depolarization of the motor end plate, which cause contraction of muscle fibers. Okay. Again, I will say acetylcholine acts as a transmitter between motor nerves and fibers of skeletal muscle. Okay, it acts as a transmitter between motor nerves and fibers of skeletal muscle at all neuromuscular junctions. Okay, and at this type of synapse, the nerve terminal is closely opposite to the cell membrane of a muscle fiber. Okay, at the so-called motor end plane, that is called motor end plane. On release, acetylcholine acts almost instantly to cause a sequence of chemical and physical events which cause contraction of which causes the contraction of muscle fibers. Okay, this is the overview of structure of myofibril and mechanism of muscle contraction. Okay, thank you.